welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
My name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
All right, here we go, Josh. So let me check in really quick because I made a joke off podcast. I want to make the joke on podcast. Ready?
Yes.
Any more Emmys?
No more Emmys.
Okay.
Emmys happen in February, so
okay. Well,
they only happen once a year. So.
You know, I'm just checking in because, you know, you're such a humble guy that we have to keep you on target with it. So I want to know as soon as the next Emmy happens.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you in the pipeline this time. So.
And you realize this will be a running joke for the rest of our existence. So I'm just saying.
There is a live stream of the Emmy like they don't do it like on television. Well, they used to. They used to do it on like cable, but for the regional Emmys, but now they just do it as a live stream. So I did watch the live stream this year. So
and when your name was announced,
yeah, it was me and a bunch of other people. They weren't
did
like
you wear
Josh
a
Knapp,
tuxedo?
you're the only one who gets this Emmy. It was like me and all the team that helped.
You know, at first I thought my joke was stupid because I was being facetious about a third Emmy, but that just right there, that statement right there proves how humble of a guy you are.
There you go.
We're not talking about all of them. We're talking about the guy sitting in a room with 2 Emmys behind his shelf.
Yeah, I got one. I got a couple.
Did you wear a tux?
No. I didn't go. Like it was all pre-recorded.
Okay. You're lucky you have a gay man in your life. Next time we're going to really celebrate. We're going to wear tux and have champagne and do the whole thing.
I got to like have the problem is they don't even give you the Emmy, like the people who win it, like they don't even give you the Emmy there. They have to send it to you. So like I didn't get the Emmy for like a month later until after I won it.
That doesn't stop a red carpet. That doesn't stop photographs before. That doesn't stop a celebration of you kissing your wife when you win. That doesn't stop any of that stuff.
Yes.
I'll hook you up next time.
Okay, all right.
We're gonna do a big day and watch. You won't win.
You're gonna be my award concierge.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. No, I didn't win an Emmy. I just watched a bunch of movies.
Yeah, what's up with you?
Well, no. So Steph actually went on a trip to Croatia, which we've been there before, but she went on a swimming trip to Croatia, and they were swimming like 6 miles a day, and like I can't do that.
She's amazing.
She is amazing. So I was like, nope, I'll hold it down here. It'll be, me and our dog. And so, I just watched a bunch of movies. There was a bunch of things that I had kind of lined up. Like a while ago, I had bought the Godfather trilogy on 4K Blu-ray, and I just hadn't watched them again. And so I have watched Godfather 1 and 2, have not gotten to Coda or the Godfather 3. So I'm going to watch the new cut of Godfather 3, but I'm saving that for later, but yeah, man, Godfather 1.
Have you seen Godfather 3 before?
Yes, I've seen the original Godfather 3, but it was 20 years ago. I mean,
it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to be.
Yeah, well, and
I'm just optimistic about things like that, and it's just not as bad. There's some flaws, and it's flawed, but it's just not as bad. And ironically, I say this every time this movie comes up. Out of the 3 films, the one that Al Pacino should have been nominated for and possibly should have won for was Godfather 3. Now, I know that's controversial and a lot of people throw slack my way, but it's the only film out of the trilogy he wasn't nominated for. But that scene on the staircase after the opera, that's unbelievable where he goes in that moment.
Well, and I mean, just Al Pacino in general across all 3 movies, but especially the first movie. Like, I know there's so much love for Godfather 2, but that first movie, seeing where Al Pacino starts, like where his character starts, and seeing how his body changes throughout that film. I mean, and then even into the second movie, but really, like, that character arc is pretty much complete by the end of the first film, the character arc that they were hoping to put out there, I think. And, like losing a wife in Italy. And I mean, like all of that, it's just.
And never talking about it.
Oh, to anybody.
And never
and just
talking
coming
about
back
it.
and being like, Diane Keaton, let's go, and it's just like, wow, it's so.
When she sees him crossing the street, when she's crossing the street with the kids, and that's shot so well. It's so intense.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, top to bottom, is amazing, but yeah, and you don't get really, the second movie is where you get John Cazale really, chewing the scenery. But in the first movie, it's, not really anything. But But then, you know, it also sucks because you got James Caan in there for the first movie. You want to have him in there for the rest of the movies. Now they did like have a little bit of him at the end of Godfather Part 2. And you like when you see him again on screen, you're like, oh yeah, the Sonny character. And you're just, you know, you just are feeling that. And so I don't know. It's such a, geez. I mean, it's Godfather. It's the Godfather movies. I mean, I don't really have to say anything about it, but I mean, it's just, it was amazing. I'm glad that I went back. And I think for me, it's just such a daunting task. You're talking about like, you know, almost 6 hours of your life for 2 movies, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of like, you know, I got to like commit to this. And I really wanted to watch them all. I wanted to watch not them both in one day, but I wanted to watch each of the movies in one day, you know, at a sitting. So you got to block out a lot of time. So that was, but I'm glad I did it. It was great. And I need to like kind of like get back into that. I think for a lot of these movies, I also rewatched Cool Hand Luke, which I have to watch every year. Like that movie, like I don't do that, but I really need to watch that movie every year because every time I watch it, I get more and more out of it. And there's just so much. I mean, there's symbolism in there. There's amazing. It seems like it's such a simple movie, but there's a lot of moving parts and moving pieces, and you really do feel what Paul Newman's going through, and you get to experience it. But it seems like it's a very emotional movie. But I think for a lot of people, maybe even back then, it was somewhat safe. It wasn't a melodrama in the highest sense of the words, but there's a lot of drama going on there, and it's not played melodramatically. So I don't know. I thought I love that movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and
the music, the cinematography, the everything. It's not
George Kennedy's Oscar-winning performance.
Shoot,
I mean.
yeah.
As soon as he's watching that girl wash the car, it's like there
oh,
shouldn't
don't
be a
strike me blind.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a competition. Just here you go. Here's your statue. And then you're going to put Mr. Walton into the lockbox. You know, like, come on now.
I didn't watch the Waltons. I didn't realize that was the first guy they put in the lockbox.
That's him.
Interesting.
And you're like, where's John Boy? Why is he not fighting for his dad? I mean, of course, this is what's going through my childhood mind when I'm watching it. Because
and you got Dennis Hopper in there.
Yeah,
who doesn't even have a line. He has no words are said by him, but he makes, that's the one thing I noticed this time when I watched this movie. Dennis Hopper his character is intentional in every scene that he's in, and he's always in the background. I mean, he's holding the money in the egg scene, but he is always he's always being that character. In whatever way that character, you know, is off to the side, that character is living its own life throughout any shot that he's in. And I think that's something I would think for any actor to aspire to. And you don't have to overact. He didn't necessarily overact, but I could see, like, if you're like, well, I'm way in the back, like nobody's going to see me. I can just, you know, but it's there. And I watched that in 4K also. And you can see everybody perfectly in all of the shots, so there's no hiding. So yeah, it's
well, you know the expression, there's no small parts, only small actors. Yeah. And so actually that's weird, not to compare myself to anything. Somebody said that to me about how when I was in the background of the last play that I was doing, that I never broke character, and I never thought that was a thing. Like, I didn't think, oh, they can't see me, I'm only 3 feet behind the action, they can't see me up here. I mean, of course they can see me, but it just made sense to me to always be in action. It just does. I have a fruit fly flying around, by the way. I left a banana in a trash can, so now it's driving me crazy. So if you see me go crazy,
you need to get some chopsticks out and grab it.
Yeah, there's actually a way to keep them out of your house. I just don't know. Anyway, Mr. Walton's name is Ralph Waite, just in case, because they give him due respect, because he is very good in this movie, and he had a career before the Waltons, so let's not downplay that. But yeah, if you got Dennis Hopper in the background, I mean, it's like Danny DeVito in One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, he has lines and he has a part, but he's still a background player. But think about it. Wouldn't you want to be a background player in a Paul Newman film? How much could you learn?
Yeah, right. And yeah, you've got Harry Dean Stanton and Strother Martin. I mean, like, it's just the whole sheet all the way down. And yeah, I don't know. I I also was looking at the structure of the movie and saying, you know, like, why was this scene here? You know, as far as like the pivotal scene in the movie is the least, you know, it's the thing that nobody really thinks about, is when he goes and talks with his mother and she's in the back of that truck.
The best.
And the movie changes after that. And I think that, you know, when you think about Cool Hand Luke, all you think about is him running away from the bloodhounds, and you think about him cutting off the parking meter heads.
Yeah,
and
that's what I think about.
You think about the scene at the church in the end. You think about all the Lucille scene, you know, washing the car. And you know, all of those scenes, they're iconic, but the scene that is the crux of the movie is when he's talking to his mom. And so yeah, all of that, I feel like, man, every time I watch this, I'm just going to see something more and more and more. So
well, I can't breathe during that scene for all intents and purposes, because she's smoking constantly. It's you know, the dead of the summer. She's inside a box and she's talking. And the whole entire time I'm like, how are they breathing? How did she breathe? How did she get? But I think it added to the scene. I think it added to the distance between the two, and how much she was like, yeah, you're not getting absolution from me. You're just not.
Yeah. And it's also not it's not a traditional mother-son conversation. It's
that's
a very
what I'm saying.
equal conversation. It's like, we're both adults here.
I'm sorry, son, I put you in this position. Nope. I'm sorry, son, that I'm genetically bound to be an abusive mother. Nope. It's like, you did this to yourself. I'm only here because I'm supposed to be. It's devastating. It's really well done. Yep. It's interesting that you started off with Godfather. I almost said God Part 2. That's a song. Godfather and Cool Hand Luke. Those are movies that I mention to people when we're talking about movies that I love. And every time I think about recommending those movies, I know that no matter who's watching those movies, they're going to come out of it with the same end result I did. Those films are being talked about to this day for a reason. And once you're done with them, especially the first time, you're like, oh, that's why. Mm-hmm. These films are immense and part of our zeitgeist, and it's part of our world. And there's a reason why. And they're that good. So I never worry. There's some movies I worry about recommending that I'm like, are they going to get it? They're not going to get it. Is it going to, maybe they won't, but not those.
Yeah. Well, and this is where I admit something to you. In previous episodes, we've talked about the movie All About Eve. I never finished it. And I just kind of went along. You were talking about All About Eve. I started the movie like 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago. And I just like fell asleep, and I was like, okay, I get it. And then, you know, you talked about it in the past, and I'm like, yeah, I do need to go back and see that movie. Well, it was on Criterion Channel, and I turned it on, and I was like, yeah, I remember the beginning of this. And I also remember, I was like, oh yeah, Marilyn Monroe's in this movie, and this is a Marilyn Monroe movie I haven't seen. And so I started watching it, and I just fell into it. And it is one of the best movies of all time. And I didn't expect it. And I didn't realize what I was getting into, but every single performance is amazing, and the structure of the film is great, and the subject matter, even though it's something that I'm not really, I mean, it's essentially backstage in theater, but the thing that hooked me is, if you look at my top 10, most of the movies in my top 10 are about power and power dynamics and the relationships between people, and how those change based on, you know, who has the most power or who's seeking power. And that's what All About Eve is about. And that, but it also kind of obfuscates it too. It kind of says, because initially you've got this, whatever you want to call her, hayseed, you know, aspirational actress, just trying to glom onto anything, trying to soak anything up as, you know, like a sponge. And you can suspend your disbelief of her trying to be Machiavellian, but, you know, as the movie goes on, you get to see if she is or isn't. But I mean, the whole movie, I was like, I'm in on this, because there was enough of intrigue and a little bit of mystery to me that I was like, I could see a world in which she's not trying to manipulate people, that she's just a good person, but maybe not. So,
well, it's interesting. Once again, it's another movie where I go, watch it. It's worth watching it, and what you just articulated is exactly what I was just trying to say. It's, oh, this is what this is. And then you find your, not comparisons, or not something you can compare your life to or relate to, but you understand the themes, and yours was power. What I find interesting is I've had discussions with people about this film, and they get mad at me because I say Ann Baxter was manipulating from moment one. From the moment you see her backstage door.
Of course she was.
But people argue with me. Oh, she fell into the power. She won. And I was like, no. How would you be able to be prepared for what she gets to do if she wasn't already pre-planning it? You know,
well, she tells a story about her origin that,
right,
you know,
right. And then Betty Davis, everybody's like, well, you know, she could have helped and all this other stuff. And I was like, she already was where Ann Baxter wanted to be. So she didn't need to. And she was completely polite and professional to Ann Baxter's character all the way through. She was actually the nicest person in the film. If you look back on it, everybody wants something from her. Mm-hmm. And she's willing to give it all out. She gives it all out. She gives it all out. And they were like, well, somebody who makes it to her state in life and her position in that career had to have been manipulative and all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, but now she's not. And I'm not saying she was or is. I'm saying that she doesn't come across that way in the film later on. She's actually defending Ann Baxter's character. Eve. I couldn't think. Margot and Eve. Yeah. I couldn't think at first. I always get them switched for some reason.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she seems to be like, yeah, okay, this makes sense. But then when Eve is like, wahaha, it's been part of my plan this whole entire time. I'm now going to not only take over your position, but I'm going to destroy you while I'm doing it. Yeah. What I always say in this discussion, I don't believe Margot would have done the same thing in reverse. It's a good party conversation.
Well, and I think that we're meeting the characters where they're at that moment. You know, right. We're meeting a successful actress at the beginning of the movie that Betty Davis is playing in Margot. And then we're also meeting this up and coming, scrappy, will do anything for fame, Eve. And so that's where we're meeting them. So as far as like what she did earlier in her career, she could have done things worse somehow in her career. Margot could have done things worse in her career to get to that point. But that doesn't mean she either, number one, hasn't changed, or number two, would do those exact same things. She can't do those exact same things because, like you said, and like these other people you're talking to said, she's in a different position. She doesn't need to do any of it. She doesn't necessarily need to manipulate in that same way because she already has the money. She already has the power to whatever it is, pick a director, pick a producer, get multiple financiers to finance her play. Like, she has to do that, but she's also on the decline, or she perceives that she could be on the decline. And then that amount of vulnerability that she shows, the little amount of vulnerability that she at least, intimates, that gives Ann Baxter's character Eve one way in. And you've got Thelma Ritter there the whole Brilliant. Time, kind of like being the voice of reason, being like, she's bad all over. You need, I can see this from the beginning. And then, even as the audience member, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. I think you're being a little hard on her, but no, she placed it from moment one. So
see, I think people are mad at me because that says something about me, that I saw that instantaneously. The very first time I watched it, I was like, I don't like, what's she doing?
I guess maybe it's like a sense of hope and humanity, maybe.
Sure. But the sense of hope comes from, and I'll discuss this to the end of my days, is that Margot hasn't become the worst case scenario. And if past history dictates future history, then Margot is trying to at least be a good person and trying to do the right thing on some kind of level. Yes, the pressure of her career is different than where Eve is, but you're right. It's about backing and about finances, about making theater non-commercial, because they talk about that with the award show and all that other stuff, and look at where theater's going and all this other stuff. And she's trying to maintain and still do the right thing. Maybe people can't believe that in somebody who's as successful in that kind of career. But for me, I'm always going to be on the side of Margot. I mean, maybe because it's Betty Davis, but something about Eve, man.
It's all about her.
It's all about her.
Well, and the framing device is great too, showing the 1 year later at the beginning of the movie when she's when Eve is winning that award, and you're kind of like, okay. And then also having the theater critic doing the voiceover.
George Sanders.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
Won the Oscar.
Yeah. So that's kind of amazing to me because I was looking at all of the different like Oscars that it was nominated. It was nominated for, I don't know, like 1, 2, 3,
11,
4, 5.
Yeah. Won 6.
I think, yeah, almost all of them. Back then, I would think. But yeah, it did win. I don't know. It looks like George Sanders didn't win. Oh, yes, it did win. Yeah, it did win. Okay. But then like Betty Davis and Baxter were nominated. Celeste
nominated for 11, 6.
Thelma Ritter. Jeez. So 2 leading actresses and 2 supporting actresses nominated. Yeah. Joseph Mankiewicz won for director. Screenplay he won for.
Picture.
Yeah, picture one. Golly. Oh my gosh.
So it's interesting statistically, at least for me, or I don't know if statistically is the right word, but you have 2 supporting actresses who haven't won at that point. And I don't believe Thelma Ritter ever did. Celeste Holmes did eventually win. And of course, Betty Davis has won. No, she hasn't. She didn't.
Thelma Ritter has not won.
No, she has not. Mm-hmm. And I believe both Anne Baxter and Betty Davis have won at some point in their career. But at that time, I don't think Anne Baxter. Anyway, the 2 contenders for those 2 awards should have been one of the people who won. They didn't. And George Sanders, in this kind of subtle, no over-the-top moments, although I would watch, if he was in a room and he was behind me, I'd be looking over my shoulder the whole entire time because I don't trust him either, and didn't from moment one. Yeah. Not that he does anything deceptively, but it's all about what his angle is going to be and what he can do. He seems to be promoting the right aspects of theater in the beginning of the film, but is he? Is he more interested in this drama, or is he more interested in theater being successful to the masses? Anyway,
I think he's interested in power.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's interested in his sway in the industry. It is
but
not
the
as an
way
actress,
people
not
go
as a director.
Yeah, but the way people go about getting their power is interesting to me.
Yeah.
I find it way more. Okay, whether or not you manipulate people or not is never a good thing. But to actually say, hey, I want to be a big star, I want to do successful theater, I want to be a huge actress who makes bank so I can make these creations happen, to me, sounds like a reasonable way to want to keep and pursue power. The other people, including George Sanders, always have something. They want power, not necessary. And then they guise it in this thing of, oh, I want to make sure that theater is still substantial and all this. No, you don't. You want power over these people. Yeah. He makes it very clear in that opening monologue what he's going through. So, but the point is that it's an Academy Award winning performance that is not this like crazy over the top thing. It doesn't have any of these devastating moments. There is supposed undertones to his character and things that were not able to be spoken about in that day and age. I don't see it, but that's what people say. That's what people say.
He had Marilyn Monroe with him. I mean, it's like you're going to bring Marilyn Monroe to a party, or, you know, like usher her into a role.
People
like,
who don't have power, who won't accomplish power by what they actually do, because how much could a critic really do? I guess they can get a lot of power in their life.
I mean, they can shut down a production with one review.
That's true. That's true. That is a lot of power. Interesting. Just something went through my mind. Anyway, it tells too much about myself. But you surround yourself by the pretty people, because then you feel pretty and then you feel important. And that's what he's doing. He's not trying to like make Marilyn Monroe successful anything in that film.
Well, I kind of thought it was more of a quid pro quo. Like, I'll take you to this party, but you got to help me out. You know what I mean? That kind of a thing.
Gross.
Well, come on.
Well, I mean, it's gross no matter how it is.
But I mean, that's a guy in that position and that character specifically. I could totally see him doing that, you know, and I'm sure Marilyn Monroe was not the first actress that he did that to. And that's why Anne Baxter at the end, you know, in probably the scene that won him the Academy Award in that hotel room, you know, and she's kind of, you know, going back and forth and here's what's going to happen. And he kind of like corrects her and says like, no, you can't outfox the fox, you know, type of a thing. So yeah, it doesn't work that way. So it's obviously not the first time he's been in a situation with a woman who's aspirational in theater, and, you know, and so she thought she saw a vulnerability there, but he sees right through her. So Yeah.
Interesting how either we're really good people because we're watching movies about bad people, or there says something about us as people that we're attracted to movies about bad people. I think it's because we are trying not to be, and we're trying to like live in the light. And so reflecting people who go through those things and being like, whew, I'm so glad I'm not that person.
Yeah.
You know?
If you ever see yourself doing George Sanders-y type things, maybe back up. So anyway. All right.
My mind just went 1,000 different things that I've done in my life. Anyway.
All right. So have you watched anything?
Well,
I got a bunch of other stuff. So, I mean, I could keep going.
Well, first of all, if we haven't mentioned, this is a quick cuts. We haven't mentioned that yet. And I'm sure you'll do it on the promotion and stuff like that. But Josh sends me a text about, hey, we need to do a quick cuts episode. Look at what I've watched. And there were like multiple movies in one day. You watch like 3 movies in one day. And I was like, did you watch 3 movies in one day? You sent me that sinister Jack Nicholson smile back. Right. And I was like, yeah, I don't like that. That's creepy. Don't do that. But it was appropriate in a way. And so I was like, I haven't been watching anything, comparatively speaking. That's not entirely true. I've been catching up on the series that I haven't been able to watch because whatever, doing the play, whatever it may be, not time, working, whatever it may be. So I have watched some HBO shows that I've been wanting to catch up on. The Last of Us. Have you seen it? It's as brilliant as everybody says it is. Yeah. It is not what I was expecting. I was like, I cannot watch a movie about a virus that turns people into zombies
based on a video game.
Well, that doesn't bother me. That's fine. I don't care where people take their inspiration from. I kind of like that. I thought, well, that's interesting. It must have something because HBO has funded it, so it must have something. So I don't really have a problem with it coming from a video game or a play or a book or whatever. It doesn't matter to me. What I didn't want to do was watch a pandemic. I didn't want to watch a bunch of people, in an apocalyptic world about a pandemic and about zombies. And I don't have any problem with zombies films. I've watched as many as the next person, and I will go see as many as they're willing to put out. I'm probably one of the only people who saw World War Z in the theater. But
oh, wow.
Yeah, I did. It's not as bad as everybody says it was. But anyway, so it's not that. It's not that at all. It's a character-based show. It's about 2 people. It's about their history. It's about the importance of surviving. It's about so many other things other than zombie attacks. Yes, that's there, but it's minimal. And it's not what I was expecting it to be. And everybody is talking about this fight between Brian Cox and Jeremy Strong from Succession, possibly winning the Emmy again. Jeremy Strong, or possibly winning it for the first time, Brian Cox. But I'm telling you, I think Pedro Pascal is going to win that Emmy. Oh, he is superb. They love giving it to the first-time nominees. They do that quite often, and his performance is stunning. From moment one, it's stunning. And it took me a long time to watch it because I would get through the 3rd episode and I'd be weeping and I'd be crying. I'd be like, that's it. I can't do this again for another week because I can't do another episode because it's draining me. I couldn't binge watch that show. Mm-hmm. It was too draining. And then the Nick Offerman episode, it's just about 2 guys. That's it. 2 guys who fall in love and have to survive the apocalypse. That's it. I mean, there are drastic things that happen because of the apocalypse in that one episode. There are things that happen to set up Nick Offerman's character. There are things that they have to deal with, but not really. It's a relationship episode. And that was profound to me. I was like, well, that's brave. Not necessarily because of it being 2 men, but because they slowed a showdown on the 3rd episode to do a show about 2 people protecting each other. I was like, and I wept and I couldn't do it. And then the Melanie Linsky episode. Do you remember the little boy, Sam? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The deaf little boy. He's sad. It took me almost 2 weeks to pick up the show after that episode because it broke my heart. I couldn't get over what happened in that episode. I just couldn't. And I'm like, this is a fictional show based on a video game. Why am I weeping like it's Shakespeare or the Bible. What is wrong with me? But it is profound and it is extremely well done. And the end of that episode smacked me around. And I was like, not even the whole Melanie Linsky being a warlord and acting like, now I'm scared of her. I was deeply in love with her.
You haven't seen Yellow Jackets, so.
No, and I don't know if I want to, because I want Melanie Linsky in my heart. I don't want to be afraid of Melanie Linsky if I ever meet her, because she has touched me on a lot of different levels throughout her work, throughout her career. I was not expecting her to be a soldier with a gun strapped to her thigh, doing what she does in that episode. I was not expecting it. And what I wasn't expecting was her to be, it's okay, you can tell me, Melanie Linsky, and then ba-ba-ba-boom. I was not expecting it. Mm-hmm. But that episode was more about the characters, the young African-American male and the boy that he is trying to keep alive. And the reason why Melanie Linsky is as mad as she is, which I thought was profound, because I wasn't expecting it to be what it was. I wasn't expecting the character that I'm rooting for, without giving too much away, actually deserves to kind of be hunted the way that they're hunted. They kind of deserve it if you look at it in a certain perspective. So I've been watching that. I finally caught up on Succession. I've watched the first season. I'm deep into the second season. And my friend Nancy, who listens to us quite often, hi Nancy, she said Succession was one of the best shows on TV. I believe she said the best show on TV. And I was like, is it? I don't know. Privileged Caucasian people with a lot of money fighting each other for a lot of money. Why do I care about this show? And so I watched about 3 episodes and I was like, the acting's great, but why? And then there's this switch that happens. There's a Thanksgiving episode and something clicks in and they tonally change a character in mid-season completely. Now, you know that this character might end up being the way that they are described in the beginning of the show, but then you're fooled into believing it's something else. And then all of a sudden they're back to where they said they might, or they were being accused of being, without, I know I'm jumping around talking about it because I don't want people to...
And I appreciate that, because like I only watched the first episode and I was kind of like you, where I was like, I don't see where's the hook? Like,
right.
I mean, like, where's the thing that's going to keep me coming back every week? And I also kind of feel like, in the same way that Game of Thrones, that I never really went through that, and I probably never will, in that it was such a cultural event, and maybe is the last cultural event like that. I felt like Succession is the closest we've gotten to a cultural event of a TV show as Game of Thrones was, where everybody at some point was talking about Succession, especially, well, last month or whatever, when the series finale aired. And so I feel like maybe I missed the bus, and maybe like I'm okay missing the bus. I don't know.
No, you're just waiting. You're just waiting for the next bus. And when the next bus comes, get on it. Okay. Because, and if you want to, if you don't, that's fine. And I think The Last of Us was culturally important too.
You're right. But I guess that was like 8 episodes or whatever. So like, that's kind of like a 2-month thing. And I was on it, and I agree with you. I agree with you where like it was good to have a week-long breather between those episodes, because
I forced myself.
It's a lot,
because I could have binged it.
I know.
It's too much. It's literally too much in each episode. They should have had a break in between the half an hour period. Half an hour break. If you choose to come back, great. If you don't, we completely understand. Yep. Go talk to your therapist and come back when you're ready, because it was hard. And Succession smacked me around, which I was not expecting it to be. And it is fully because of Jeremy Strong's performance. You remember I spoke about him in the trial, the Chicago 7. Mm-hmm. I kept saying, okay, great for Sacha Baron Cohen getting the Oscar nomination. Good for him. But who's that Jeremy Strong guy? He kept sticking out to me. And remember, I saw it twice before the Oscars, and I was like, yeah, I'm okay with it being Best Picture. And you were funny about that. You were like, you're just okay. And like, do you think it's a great film? Oh, it's a very good film. It's a very good film that's winning the Oscar for Best Picture, is what you said to me. And I was like, yeah, he's right. But it didn't. But the point is that Jeremy Strong won the Emmy the first year. And I don't know, that's talent. Like, I don't know how anybody goes there. I don't know how anybody does what he does, and all of them do it. And it's quirky and it's unusual, and it is everything that I said it was and labeled it as, but there's a interesting heart strung through it. And there are things, and it's subtle. It's in the way that the father calls the daughter her nickname. It's in the way that he puts his hand on the son's shoulder. It's there. It's interesting how topical it is. So thank you, Nancy, because I am glad, because of what she said, I was like, I'm going to give it another shot. And I'm going to give it another episode. And then I was like, okay, I'll watch the next episode. And then I'll watch the next episode. And I don't remember how many episodes in. It might even be 7 or 8 in before the Thanksgiving episode. And it wasn't taxing to keep up with it, but it was like, okay, I'm going to get through the first season so I can say that I did. So when people bring it up, I can say, well, this is why it didn't really work for me. But man, I'm watching the last episode and I'm realizing it's too late in the evening to go into the second season, but I did click onto the second season just to see how it started, for about 15 minutes, which I don't traditionally do. If I don't have the whole hour to dedicate, then I usually don't do it. So yeah, so excuse me. I have been to the theater though. I have been to the movie theater. I saw the new Spider-Verse film.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we might want to watch it and talk about it.
Yeah,
but
I tried to. They're reducing the number of theaters, so it's like 4 p.m. on a Thursday, and it's like I can't go to that. But I okay. So it's worth it then? Is what I've heard.
Yes, it's totally worth it.
Okay.
I hate to say clever because that sounds condescending, but it is so clever what they do. It is so like okay. I'm not going to say anything else.
Well, and I will say the same thing about Asteroid City, which I just watched last night in the theater, and we need to talk about it because it's a. I think it. I don't want to say it. I think it's Wes Anderson. It's one of my It's one of my top Wes Anderson movies.
Really?
Like it's we got Moonrise Kingdom. We've got
love it.
Yeah, I mean there's Fantastic Mr. Fox is great. Grand Budapest Hotel's good. More of his later stuff actually, and I rarely go back to Bottle Rocket, Royal Tenenbaums. I rarely go back to those, but it
seems like two different directors now that if you think about it.
Well, he definitely got into his own, and he has more stuff to play with, I think.
Well, and more people, and that makes sense. I just worry, and I'm going to make this statement so we can discuss it later. I just worry that he's falling in on his own aesthetic.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, I know he doesn't care. I'm not saying that. I'm good for him. I'm admiring it at the same time. It's what's kind of keeping me from it. Because what was the last one about the writers?
French Dispatch.
Yeah, that was. It's like
you're getting buried alive in Wes Andersonian things.
Yes, exactly. It's just like I've been buried alive by Shakespeare recently. It's like, okay, enough. I need to speak the language that I was born into. As I try to uplift my language right there, because sometimes it's the world is enough. It's like a Tim Burton film. If I see another striped curly Q, I'm just going to scream. But I love it.
But I think that you can make a comparison, or you can kind of put Wes Anderson and the Coen brothers next to each other, right? And I think
absolutely.
that you may lean more towards the Coen brothers because you can have a Coen brothers movie where they take something, whatever it is, a genre or a setting, and they kind of like just mold it into their thing. And it's like, no, this is our, whatever it is, this is our murder mystery. This is our, take your pick. I just watched Raising Arizona over again. This is our screwball comedy. This is our, and they put their stamp on it. This is our noir film. They do that, and they utilize different, cinematic languages, and then they work within those constraints. Whereas Wes Anderson says, "This is my cinematic language, and this is what I do, and I'm going to change the relationships of the characters. I'm going to change, whatever it is, but it's all going to fit within my cinematic language, and it will conform to what I enjoy. Which, I mean, I think that they both write great dialogue, and they both are quirky, and they both are, have their things, but it's inherently different. Those two ways of making a movie are inherently different, I think. So I like
all I
both
can
of
think
them.
about all I can think about when you were talking is how not centered to the film or to the camera I was, and how Wes Anderson would have a problem. So I'm like, am I proportionate? Because I love
Yes.
that about him.
Oh, yeah.
I heard exactly what you said. And the other thing I kept thinking about is then one name comes to mind, Ang Lee. How come Ang Lee is able to do, which one of these don't go with the other? There's nothing similar to Sense and Sensibility and Brokeback Mountain when it comes to subject, tone, attitudes, the way he shoots it. There are similarities to some of his cinematography choices and some of his shot choices. There are similarities, but really not really.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that's what Wes Anderson has to be. I would never say that. I love the fact that he has his own thing. Good for him. But it is one of those things that maybe it's like, when you go to a restaurant and you're hungry, but you don't know what you want to eat, but you know you don't want to eat that, whatever that is.
Okay.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like, I know I'll enjoy dining at the Wes Anderson restaurant, and I know whatever food I eat, I'll be satisfied, but do I want that on Thursday at 4:00? You know what I mean? I want a burrito. I don't want Wes Anderson salad.
The Wes Anderson McDonald's in Richmond is going to be the same as the Wes Anderson McDonald's in Raleigh.
Good point.
So
I mean, that's a really, really good point. I hate the fact that everything I say, you take it and make it sound better. You do. You make everything I say sound better. Let me center myself. We love you, Wes Anderson.
He'll be happy now. The other thing I think.
No, I'll be happy. It drives me crazy when that's eschewed in other films. I literally will go like this and hold my hand. Yes, because it drives me crazy. But not everybody has that same. I need it to be equal on each side. It's just, it makes me feel comfortable. It just does. I guess it's, what's that when you redo your living room so it flows better?
Feng shui.
Feng shui. I have a feng shui mind where I need to have
Can I quote you on that? I have a feng shui mind.
Yes. As a matter of fact, my glasses down here, because the reflection drives me crazy.
Oh.
But I do it because it's appropriate. For the podcast. Anyway, so I saw Spider-Verse, had a great time. Can't wait to see it again. We'll talk about it. And I saw The Flash.
Oh, okay. I know. Oh, of course you saw The Flash. Michael Keaton's in it. I mean, come on. Other people are in it, I've heard.
And I've been thinking, what do I say? Because I love everybody in it. I love DC. I love Andy Muschietti. I love it. So here's what I'll say. I am not comprehending why, at this point, the DCEU instead of the DCU, why the DCEU did not follow the source material more closely. The source material has been around. There's a series of comics called The Flashpoint that was combined together, and it's a very expensive combination of comics. Anyway, it's like $150 to get the whole series.
Jeez.
And yeah, I know. I was like, okay, don't go to the comic book store for 3 months and buy this series, or keep going and getting the series you're already reading and continuing on. I chose the latter. And it was turned into a very successful, and I think one of the best DC animated films, called The Flashpoint. I don't know why they just didn't follow that more closely or closer. They chose to do certain things that sort of were similar, but then they put their own spin on it, and I don't understand their choices. So I refuse to say a bad word about anybody in the film, because there's a reason these comics have been around longer than our lives have been lived. There's a reason why these DC characters have, I'm not saying you have to stick to canon, and I'm not saying you only have to do, which is, by the way, a funny thing when it comes to the Spider-Verse, which you'll get once you see the film, without giving anything away. But if there is a canon and there is ideas of how these characters have been for 50 plus years, why not? Why are the writers walking into a room and going, okay, yeah, that's great, but here's a better idea that I just came up with this month. Okay, that's cool. If they thought that worked, that's cool. I have faith in James Gunn. I have faith in Andy Muschietti, who is now going to direct The Brave and the Bold, which is going to give us our first on-screen Robin. Which I find interesting, and a younger Batman, which I find interesting. I'm not sure how he's going to do it. I'm not sure how it's going to look. I like Andy Muschietti's films. We've had some discussions about it, and that movie he did with Jessica Chastain, Mother, I thought was good. I think that's what it's called. It's creepy. I like him. I think he has a thumbprint. I'm just not sure it shows through on The Flash. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that makes me a little bit less excited to. I think I'll probably wait for that to come to streaming to dive into that. But I'm
surprised you're even debating that.
Well, I was under the impression that this movie was kind of the end of the last of the pre-James Gunn helmed DCEU. So I kind of was thinking, I did the same thing with Black Adam, where it's like, oh, let's rent it. It was like Friday night and stuff. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll watch that. But I'll probably do the same thing with this one too. So, I am starting to rewatch all of the Tarantino movies. I'm halfway through. I've watched Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, and Death Proof. So I will report back when I've rewatched all the rest of his movies. But
is that because of the 10th and final one that he's going to make?
I don't know.
And is he really going to do that?
Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter because he can always say that he's going to direct something else. And he can always say like, oh, I know I said 10, but now it's 11 or whatever. This
is 10 and a half.
It's a reason for people to talk about Quentin Tarantino, which I'm less interested in than talking about Quentin Tarantino because of the movies that he's made or because of the art that he's made or because of the podcast that he's doing now. Like, I would much rather talk about that.
Agreed. But if he does stick to that and only does 10 films, that's impressive. And that is an interesting thing to talk about, that somebody knows their art form and knows that it began and ended, and that's it. Sometimes we have a sequel problem in this world of movie land. Sometimes it's like, no, don't do part 2 and 3. Don't do it. The Matrix, the third one's the final. Is it?
Well, okay, but then
was it?
So, okay, tell me all of the Steven Spielberg movies that you would cut out to get him to 10 movies.
But he's never said he's going to do just 10 movies.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
so he's not saying
that every director should only do 10 movies. It's
absolutely not. It's that he's stating that, and he has stated factually things about his actors or his choices or his ideas, and he stuck to them. Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I'm not going to cast that person because the studio wants me to. I'm casting that person. Wait, what? John Travolta and a return to fame in this movie as a heroin junkie who's what? No, you can't do that to John Travolta. Well, then I'm not doing the movie.
Yeah.
Because if it's not Michael Madsen, then it's got to be John Travolta. And the story behind that is that John Travolta came to his house for dinner, and I don't know if I'm telling it correctly, and that he wanted to do Dusk to Dawn. That's the movie. And Tarantino was like, no, I want you to do Pulp Fiction. He was like, the heroin addict guy? Never. And he was like, well, I think we should play a game of Welcome Back, Kotter, the board game. And if I win, you have to do my Pulp Fiction movie. And that's exactly what occurred.
Oh my gosh.
And so I love that. But the point to that is that Tarantino stuck to his guns because he knows what his vision is. And just like The Hateful Eight.
Yeah.
The length of that. People gave him trouble with that. And I personally thought that it was too long for a film. But then when they broke it up, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Much, much better in parts.
Well, I'm sure he did kind of give on Kill Bill, because I did watch Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair, which is both movies put together. It takes out when it switches to black and white when she's fighting the crazy 88s, just to get an R rating. They had to switch to black and white because they couldn't show that much blood or something. And so it switches that out, and there's really not much else that I remember of like added scenes in the movie. But I mean, it's a long movie, but I think it's warranted. I really do like Kill Bill.
Why? Because they wanted them to break it up into two?
Yeah, they wanted to have two theatrical experiences. They wanted to get twice as much money, or potentially get twice as much money, which didn't really pan out, but because people didn't come back to see the second one necessarily. And it was like a 5-month difference, or 4-month difference between when one was released and when 2 was released. But still, you put them all together and you can see that it is a single film, but it's a super long film. And then I think that the other thing that he probably stuck to his guns with was, and I just watched Death Proof, having Zoe Bell as an on-screen actor. Zoe Bell, the stunt woman for Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, but having her be an on-screen actor and the stunt woman, on the hood of the car, and
she does well.
Yeah, she's amazing in the movie. She's so good, and it I don't know what strings he had to pull, or if he had to pull any strings. I hope he didn't, but it totally pays off. I mean, that movie has some really good performances. Kurt Russell saves that movie, and because before Kurt Russell shows up, it's rough. And I think it's maybe Tarantino's dialogue when a bunch of women are talking together. I don't know. It just seems awkward. It seems awkward when they're not doing action movie stuff, and when they're not.
It sounds like when I'm listening to 20-year-olds now, and I'm going, I know what they're talking about, but it never rings true to me because they use words, phrases that I don't understand.
But I was in a store. It sounds like a 40-year-old man writing 20-year-old stuff, like what he thinks a 20-year-old girl would say. And it's
okay. I don't necessarily think that you're wrong. I agree with you on some level. I agree with you. And what I find more interesting than Tarantino saying I'm only doing 10 films and I'm done, or I'm going to stick to my guns, what I find interesting is, how could you possibly have somebody who made Pulp Fiction and won an Oscar for a second movie? Spielberg, actually, I heard a story about Tarantino told a story about Spielberg saying, hey, second movie, Golden Boy, not so bad, right? Because he didn't win Best Picture and all this other stuff. He won for original screenplay, which is the one he probably should have won for if you look at it that way. But anyway, when you come to what's Death Proof at this point, his 5th or 6th?
Yeah,
I mean, where's it at? And so this is after Inglourious Bastards or before? What's before Death Proof?
Kill Bill. I think Inglourious Bastards is the beginning of really his ability to I don't know. I think that it's him getting serious, I think. And I think that especially with Kill Bill and Death Proof, he's leaning into genre filmmaking, which is great. And I love it. I'm here for it.
Which is where he's from.
Yeah, exactly. And he's seen way more genre movies than probably anybody in the world. I don't know. But, and Jackie Brown to a certain extent was him, but that's a really slick movie. And I think that people sleep on that movie. It's got great performances. Robert De Niro has the most subtle he's so in the background in that movie, and it's Robert De Niro, but and
Bridget Fonda's great too. That whole sequence where that's going to rob you of your ambitions, not if your ambitions is to sit around and smoke pot all day. I mean, it's so great. My point to all that was that at this point though, after Kill Bill, after Pulp Fiction, after Reservoir Dogs, after all of his success, somebody's going to question his choice to put a stunt person in a role as an actor. Why? Yeah. Why would you question him? I will never understand that. Now, maybe directors and people who are in that level of that field need some pushback on some grounds, but when it comes to artistic choices, I will never understand anybody questioning Tarantino about what choice he wants to make, especially when it comes to the actors, because all you would have to do is look at Reservoir Dogs and go, look at this cast. I mean, that's an example of a director who really honed in on the perfect cast. He wanted different people for different roles. We've heard about it at this point. He wanted certain people, but he also was, if not him, then him, period.
Yeah.
If not her, this Amanda Plummer was the actress that role in Pulp Fiction was written for. Same with Tim Roth. If not her, then okay with her, but it has to be her. So whatever we have to do. So I don't understand why anybody would be like, you want to put a stunt person in an acting role? Yes, I do. Why? And then just put your gold statue on their table. This is why.
It makes that scene so much more effective because we're seeing because you don't have to do it's the stuff that you get ticked off at so much where you have to hide somebody's face or somebody rolls over a table or something and then oh, now we got to cut to them popping up from behind the table, and it's
I hate it.
Yeah. And it's when you can actually have somebody do the thing and emote and be that character. I mean, it's a lot. Yeah.
And I want to clarify my dislike for that. My dislike is not that that's the choice that they make. My dislike is then don't do it. If you can't get the person to do it, and this subject has come up with sex scenes.
Sex scenes too, yeah.
Yeah, if you're not going to show it, then don't act like it's not there.
Yeah.
That bothers me. There is something there behind that sheet. That's not how that sheet flows. Show it or don't do it at all. That's my personal opinion. But I mean, maybe they need it for character development, whatever. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, that's rough. All right. What else have you seen?
All right. One more show on HBO that I love. Somebody Somewhere. Have you seen this show? Heard about it? Bridget Everett, the comedian / singer. Half an hour comedy, second season.
I think we talked about it. Oh, second season? Okay.
Yeah, right. Just finished that.
Oh, cool.
If you've never seen it, you should see it. It's
on HBO,
it's not
right?
what it's not what you're expecting it to be. And I just saw an interview with I think his name is Jeff Tiller. I'm not sure. I have to look it up. I had it looked up. The supporting character, but Bridget Everett, who is the star of the show and the producer, said that she wanted to make a romantic comedy, not about a romantic couple. She wanted to be about two people. She didn't want it to be about a woman who was devastated by a life event and a man comes in and saves her life. It would be okay if that was your gay best friend that did that. So let's do that. And so, and they end up saving each other, or at least so far, or on some level. But it's clever and it's quirky and it's not what you're expecting it to be. You're in and you're out. The episode starts before it finishes. It finishes before it starts. And you're like, oh, that's sweet. And then there are moments, and then she can sing. And when she sings, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And just to see people who look like people on screen, I'm all about it. The sister looks like a real person. She looks like a real person. The other characters look like real people. And they're representing for people without making it about representing for people.
It's not the only reason why they're there. They're not there as the thing.
Correct. The gay guy is not perplexed by being gay. He's perplexed by being a Christian and having Christian beliefs and wanting to go to church. Not in conflict with him being gay, just in conflict with his religious beliefs and his spiritual beliefs. That's interesting to me. That's interesting to me that a character is put on screen that is questioning his faith, and it has nothing to do with the obvious thing that most people would want to write about. So it's something you should check out.
Okay, cool. Jeff Hiller is his name.
What'd I say?
You said Tiller, but Hiller.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
Did I? Well, good. I got it at least
so close.
I mean, you got to give me some credit because mostly it's, what did you just say, Paul? Okay, so real quick, I saw The Breakfast Club again. Ooh. Brilliant. So good. I'm sorry. Even with the language barrier and even with some of the questionable choices that they make that are not very 2023, it's still a great film. And it blows my mind that sequence when they're all confessing is improvised. I didn't know it then. I found that out recently and I was like, that cannot be made up. And they do such a great job. And Emilio Estevez, if anybody questions that he got out of acting because he can't act, they just need to rewatch that film because he is quite brilliant. That movie's brilliant. Saw the Batman again.
Okay.
And I saw the Justice League again. We're going to skip over that.
Wait, the Snyder cut or the original?
Yes.
Okay. No, that's cool.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's like borderline obsession with me because, okay, here's the truth. There are certain nights I can't watch certain things. I just can't. My mind's not there. I need something. We've talked about this before, and usually it's animation that keeps me from losing my mind. I can't turn on The Last of Us every night. I can't turn on Succession every night. I can't turn that Ricky Gervais show Afterlife, which if you haven't seen, you should see. 2 seasons, excellent. Somebody Somewhere, I can't do it. Oh, actually, that show I probably could turn on every night. There's just certain things I can't watch every night. Anything with Batman, anything with the Justice League, anything with the DC characters, I can watch on a nightly basis. The bad part about it is once I start the Justice League, can't finish it, or I don't want to not finish it. So that's 4 hours later. So moving along. I stayed with King Lear, like I said. I'm working on watching all the King Lears I could. I watched the Anthony Hopkins version, and now I'm watching the Laurence Olivier version. Whew! Wow. Lord have mercy. They make that language sound like there comes a point when you come out of yourself and go, I understood everything that those two men just said and what it means for the play and what's going on in this play. But yet I know that that's not the language that I speak on a regular basis. And I've pulled myself out at a couple of times and gone, John Hurt plays the fool in the Laurence Olivier version. I mean, it's amazing.
When was that? When was that recorded?
I don't remember.
Was it like 70s, 80s, 90s? I mean,
yeah, it's on YouTube for free, and it's a poor quality version.
Okay.
And it's scrunched, and it's just, you would hate it. You would not be able to get through it.
Yeah, I probably would hate it.
Yeah, I think about you all the time with things like that kind of stuff. Oof. And I turned on subtitles, which is very interesting because sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. But it's interesting because it's like watching a foreign language film. You know by tone and cadence what's going on in your mind and in your soul, but you don't understand the language, so you read it. Same thing with Shakespeare. It makes it a little bit easier. And when Florence Pugh, speaking of the Anthony Hopkins version, is the resolution, she's like 19 in that. She's a young child, and she's going toe to toe with all of these people. So I flip back and forth. So the other thing I wanted to mention that I watched was, for whatever reason, I got into The Glass Menagerie. Okay. And there's a reason behind it, because of Karen Allen. And you kind of have to know the backstory. I know it's silly. You kind of have to know the backstory. A friend of mine is a friend of hers, and I got to meet her, and she's super nice. And
you
she's
got
super
to
sweet.
meet Karen Allen. I just want to say that again.
Shut up.
You got to meet Karen Allen.
I did.
Come
I did.
on.
And she's so nice. She was
on.
so nice. And she's stunning looking, and she's so gracious and kind. And I have a picture, and my buddy's like, how come you didn't tweet the picture? And I was like, I don't know. I'm a little embarrassed by it. I don't know why. I feel a little like, and it's not that I'm embarrassed. It's my private picture.
It's yours. Exactly. I'm surprised you said anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I did. But these are compared to what you've watched, these are the things that I've watched. So I need to bring them up. No. Yeah, I'm surprised I said anything too. I'm a little embarrassed by it. I might be turning a little red. But anyway, she was super nice and super sweet. And I lead a fortunate life, and I got to hang out with her. And so I was like, let me go watch some Karen Allen stuff. And she did this film in 2021 called Colwell, which she was nominated for the Independent Spirit Award. Very interesting, small film. I'm not exactly sure I 100% got it, but I got a lot of things out of it. So it was interesting to watch, Marion do 2021 things, right? And so I was either, I'm going to go back and watch Raiders and then Scrooged, or I'm going to wait for my summertime Raiders time and my Christmas time Scrooge time and go and watch Karen Allen. And without going into a long story, there's a reason why my friend knows her and blah, 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 blah. And it has a lot to do with the fact that she was in The Glass Menagerie with Joanne Woodward, directed by Paul Newman. How about those names, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 6 Degrees. It's so odd. And it also has John Malkovich in it. And so I was like, well, let me watch this version of Glass Menagerie. Now, I've seen a couple other versions of Glass Menagerie through my life, and I got done with it, and I thought to myself, maybe the elixir of meeting a famous person is still in my brain, but I honestly, truthfully think Karen Allen's Laura is the best Laura that I've seen. And I mean, that might be easy to say because, the influence, but she's really dead on. And so I went down this rabbit hole of rewatching all these Glass Menageries. I saw the one with Katharine Hepburn, and then I saw one with Shirley Booth, both Oscar winners. And it was fascinating to me because I realized watching these 3 great Academy Award winning actresses, Katharine Hepburn, I realized I always think that a play is supposed to be done a certain way. The character's supposed to be done a certain way, that the playwright has a language they want you to adapt to, and they want you to find that language and that pattern of the character and be what they wrote. Well, when you watch these 3 great actresses do this very, very famous role, because Amanda is close to it's close to like a Hamlet, if you will, in modern theater. From The Glass Menagerie, Tennessee Williams. And Tennessee, did I just say?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But they all do it their own way. They all found their own language. They all sound like themselves doing the character, not a certain way that Tennessee Williams wrote it. And I was blown away by it. So I've been down a theater rabbit hole when it came to movies. So there you go.
That's so cool. And it's interesting because when you think about that, like, you know, because when you listen to music and somebody like covers another, one band covers another band's song, you're like, you don't want it to sound exactly the same. That would be boring. So you want it to be different. You want them to change it up. You want them to breathe new life into that, whatever it is. In this case, it would be that character. So that's so cool that you can kind of like set them up side by side and be like, this is, you know, this is how this actress deals with the character in that way. I mean, that's really neat. So.
Well, it was like one of those things where, like I said, I thought it should sound a certain way, that the character, and I'm always grappling with, I'm not hitting it. Whatever the director wants and whatever the playwright wants, I'm not hitting it. It's not becoming real to me until I figure out how almost I would do it. Or in the end, I can't figure out what they wanted. All I can know is that it doesn't ring true to me. So I have to make this ring true to me, and I have to make this believable. So I have to Paul James it, and I have to figure out how, not necessarily how I would say it, because, you know, I'm not going to talk like Horatio and Hamlet. I'm just not. And so there's a certain, you know, way that the dialogue is going to be presented, but you have to figure out how to make that believable. At least that's the way that I do it. And I always thought that was wrong. Let me real quick, bear with me, because I want to look this up. I'm looking up the Glass Menagerie. James Naughton, Naughton. He plays the gentleman caller in the Paul Newman, Karen Allen, Joanne Woodward Glass Menagerie. And let me tell you, the scene between him and Karen Allen is the most naturalistic, most believable scene I've ever seen acted in my life. Whoa. Hyperbole beside, watch it. Wow. They are so unbelievably believable. I was trying to hear faults in them. I watched the scene twice, once to just let it wash over me, and then a second time I was like, I'm gonna catch them messing up. I'm determined.
No,
it is so unbelievably real. That's talent. When people throw these words out, I go, I don't know about that, but that right there is talent. It sounds like they're talking to each other for the first time ever about these subjects, which is obvious. That's what their job is. But it's so real and believable. And the subtext is all right there. And it's not altogether the most pleasant scene in the world. It's pleasant because they're being polite to each other, you know, because there's certain decorum that they're following in this societal thing that they're pushing each other to do. But at the end, it's devastating. And the way that they handle it, I highly recommend you find a good quality copy and watch it.
All right. Yeah. I'll have to seek it out, because I can't handle the like YouTube dregs.
I know. I know.
So I guess I'll finish this out by saying there's a movie that I don't even know how I came across it, but it's a movie called The Love Witch from 2016, directed by Anna Biller, but she didn't just direct it. She was the director, set director, composer, producer, production designer, editor, writer, and costume designer. So She did like pretty much all of it. And you should watch a trailer. And it's a movie. It's a movie made in 2016, but it's made in the style of like an early 70s British horror, Technicolor, just like fever dream bomb. It's so striking, the cinematography and the lighting style. It's this like hard key lighting. They do a lot of the colorful backgrounds. It's shot on film, like a 35 millimeter, and it kind of does remind me of, you know, the movies that we just talked about, Shane, and those westerns where they're shot in this like hyper colorful manner, and it's so rich. The colors are so rich, and it's so stylized. I haven't even talked about what the movie is about. It's about this witch, actually, like a person who's doing like Wiccan things or whatever to try to like find a man. But it's such an arch feminist movie that it's pretty much like, you know, men are big huge babies, and so, you know, she goes through these different things to try to quote unquote find a man. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's so kind of like the dialogue is stilted and corny, and it's such a period piece, but it's like not just like, hey, we're going to do Little Women, you know, Greta Gerwig's going to do Little Women, and she's going to use, you know, new cameras and new lenses and all this stuff. It's like trying to transport you back to a world, but it's done so in such a pristine manner that it's like, it makes me feel like what somebody might feel like in the early 1970s, walking into a movie theater, watching the first print of this movie in like the best, you know, highest fidelity theater they could find. Like, because a lot of the movies, like we talked about The Wicker Man, and you do kind of get like a Wicker Man vibe, but you know, a lot of the movies that we talk about that we watch that are that old, either the transfers are not very good, or you first time you saw it was on VHS, or, you know, and for me, like, that's a part of the experience. It's how it looked when you saw it. You know, when I think of Top Gun, I kind of think of the VHS that I watched, and it just being a little crappier and it just older, even though I've got a 4K version of Top Gun, but that's the initial instant that you experience this art. And so this is like the most pristine and stylized version of that thing, whether it's like that British horror thing or whatever. And like the movie itself, the subject matter is not even really, I mean, it's okay, it's fine, but I'm so jazzed about like all of the attention to detail that they made with, like I said, the costumes and the lighting specifically, and the sets and the settings. I mean, it's just, it feels like it's out of this time. It feels like it's transporting me to that time and those moments. It's amazing. And it's on Peacock. You can just watch it for free.
Well, she looks like Wonder Woman, first of all.
Anna Biller, or
yeah.
the star. The star is Samantha Robinson, I think is her name. She's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, she's absolutely beautiful, and she has a very kind of like sing-songy voice, and it's such a striking movie, and it just goes for it, and I respect that.
Well, real quick, what made you? How did you come upon it, and what made you stick with it?
I think it was I actually saw the trailer, so I don't know where I saw this. Maybe it was on YouTube where I saw the trailer, and I was like, this trailer is so, and I was more interested in how the movie was shot, what kind of film was used, what kind of lighting and all that stuff. And then, so I ended up watching the movie, and it was consistent throughout. Because it seems like something, when you watch the trailer, it seems like something that somebody would have made something to post to YouTube that is just the trailer. You know how people do that?
Yeah.
So it seems like that. And I think maybe there's not necessarily enough like meat there to concern an hour and whatever it is, hour and 45-minute long movie. And so it's 2 hours long. And I watched it in a couple of sittings. So as far as the whole is concerned, I wasn't as jazzed about the whole of it, but the images are so striking, and the music's actually pretty good too. But the images are so striking to me, and it's like an art piece. You know, it feels like something that you would go to a museum to see or something, instead of, you know, just like putting it on in the background. Like I want to see it on the best television possible, or, you know, like I want to see it, you know, it's done with such care that I wanted to experience it. I wanted to give it as much fidelity as I could. So, but it's funny because if it was about more a different subject matter, like it's, I don't know. It's hard for me to like recommend this to people because like I'm not necessarily about like the Wiccan lifestyle or whatever, but I think also witches are secondary to what the whole point is. The point is it's more of like a feminist movie, and it's using witches and Wiccan type imagery and things to bring that through, to transport that sublimated feminist view. So, which is fine. So, I don't know. It's at least the trailer. You got to check it out because it is.
Well, I was kind of spotting it while you were talking, and I see the colors and the way that
and the
that
like
light
slit
band
lighting.
is across. Yeah,
Yep.
I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that's like
it's interesting because for you, that technical stuff can pull you through, especially if it's interesting and it's hyper realized. The other stuff that you don't really pay too much attention to is what will pull me out of it.
And you'll probably hate it
opposite.
Actually. because like the performances in Samantha Robinson's amazing, but the performances, I don't know if like Anna Biller's saying like, no, you need to be really cheesy. Like you need to overact this to the point where like you would not get this part if you actually did this in a room, in an audition. Like, I don't know if she's doing that. Because it seems like she is. It seems like she's...
Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm genetically opposed to camp. I just am, except for Rocky Horror. And that to me is because of the music. That's what keyed me into Rocky Horror. But I see I've had camp nights at the movies. People have come over and brought things over. And I just sit there going, and they're laughing and they're finding things that I find not funny at all. And I just think it's a difference of style. I just think it's a difference of, you're going to have a couch with plastic bubble blow up pillows on it, and I'm going to have a couch with no pillows on it. It's just the way it works for me. So it's not necessarily that's good or bad. It's just, it pulls me out of it. Yeah. I am hyper realistically prone. I have to have true ingrained emotions in what I'm watching. I mean, I can get it if it's part of it. Like if somebody's creating a movie in their mind during some kind of drama to escape from whatever tragedy they're in the middle of, I get that. Mm-hmm. It's like the sitcom in the middle of Juliette Lewis. No. Well, that's actually a okay example. Killers. Woody Harrelson.
Natural Born Killers.
Natural Born Killers. I could not put that together. I started thinking of the band The Killers. When her life is presented as a sitcom with Rodney Dangerfield as her father, that I understand, but that's a crazy movie anyway. So, it's the way that it is, but that's really cool that you're able to like see something, be interested in it for this level. And I bet you the director would be fascinated by the fact that all the details that she spent creating and dealing with, you actually saw, and it's the reason why you stuck with the movie. Well, that's cool.
And I dug in more and I learned a bunch about it, and I've read interviews with the like cinematographer stuff and also just people talking about Anna Biller, and like there's like this like hook and loop rug or something that's in the thing, and she like couldn't find it since she's a production designer. She couldn't find what she wanted, so she actually like made her own rug.
I love that.
I mean, it's just like, and it took her months or something, and you're just like, golly.
I love stuff like that.
So yeah,
I absolutely love stuff like that. So
you got to respect that. You have a vision, you're going to stick with it, and you're going to make it yours. And so that's what she does. So that's great.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. Well, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. You can tweet us at actorengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. I'll see you next time.